I'm joined tonight by the ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith from Washington. Congressman, thank you for being here tonight. Do you have more clarity, obviously given you are on the Armed Services Committee, about what happened and who's behind this attack?
Well, it seems pretty clear that it was an Iranian-backed militia. And as you said, these attacks have happened in a number of different places. And it's not like they were trying to avoid casualties. We were just able to defend and frankly got lucky to date, and one got through. But there's no question this was Iranian-backed militias. Now, the information we receive is Iran is not directly ordering the attacks, but they have given a general order to basically try to disrupt the Americans, and they've given them the space, as former Secretary Esper was saying, to make those attacks. So yeah, there's no question that Iran is behind this attack.
Okay, so just to be sure, because that's important, you have not seen intelligence that Iran directed this attack?
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, the general reporting you get, like I said, is that Iran's not directing these attacks, but they're arming the militias in question, and they're giving the passive go-ahead to do what they need to do without specificity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a direct order, but Iran is still responsible for these attacks without question.
Even though they're distancing themselves, which I think everyone is kind of, in disbelief about. But I think the big question tonight for us is what's going to come next, because you've seen the president vowing to retaliate. And I wonder, from your perspective, what is an appropriate, proportionate response to an attack that does kill 30 service members and injure 40 more?
Well, I think you have to go more directly after the source, which is more directly after Iran. And again, Secretary Esper, I think, laid out the options. There are a variety of different targets that would impact Iran. Not all of them are in Iran. But I think you've got to put that on the table, because the calculus right now is just not in our favor. Iran is allowing these attacks to happen with no consequences to themselves. And as long as that continues, the attacks will continue and our service members will be at risk. And that can't be tolerated. You've got to change Iran's calculus and have them bear some of the cost of what they are doing.
So for what's on the table, is it a strike on Iranian soil? Is it cyber, not kinetic activity, but in the cyber domain? I mean, what would you believe would be proportionate?
Now, all of the above is on the table. And look, I'm not going to, make the call here when the Department of Defense has a lot more details on this than I do. But, I think go into the source of these weapons. We're talking missiles and drones that are driving this. They're being made and exported from Iran. Go after that source and try to disrupt it. And similarly, these weapons are some of the same ones that Russia is using to terrorize the population of Ukraine. So I think that is one thing we should seriously look at. Where are these weapons coming from? Can we disrupt that flow?
The 165 attacks since October 17th, every time there was an attack, we heard critics saying that the White House wasn't doing enough to deter this. They said that they were doing it. Just a few weeks ago, the president said that he had delivered the message to Iran and they know not to do anything. But, is it clear to you that that deterrence did not work here?
Well, obviously it hasn't worked. The attacks have continued, but that presupposes that there was something the president could have done that automatically would have worked. And that I don't think is the case. Look, we don't want to launch a wider war within the Middle East. We don't want Hezbollah to launch, all of their rockets on Israel. We don't want Iran to full-scale, attack in Iraq our forces. So you're always striking that balance between deterrence and escalation.
Can I ask you?
And look,
Congressman,
sure.
but when do we know if it's a wider war? Because I think some people, who aren't on the Armed Services Committee would look at this and say 165 attacks, 3 dead U.S. soldiers. They would ask if we're there yet.
Well, two things about that. First of all, obviously it's a wider war, but a wider war can always become wider still. That's why I specified, the big thing we don't want Hezbollah coming down from Lebanon and opening a second front on Israel. That would be the huge opening of the conflict. And then if Iran started to more directly launch their own weapons from Iran on our targets, as opposed to going through proxies who don't have the same capability that Iran does. Iran could also do what they were doing, by the way, I like to point out, during the Trump administration, when President Trump likes to say he could wave a magic wand and make this all go away, when Iran was attacking Saudi Arabia and UAE and international ships in a variety of different places.
Yeah.
So yes, this war is wider certainly than it was in Gaza, but it can very easily get wider and vastly more dangerous than that, and that's what the president has to guard against.
Yeah, and Secretary Esper noted that as well. Congressman Adam Smith, thank you for joining tonight. And of course, our thoughts and are with those families, and we are forever grateful
Absolutely.
for their service.
Absolutely.